On a bus, Vietnam War veteran Frank Vega shared his life story. He grew up on a farm, excelled in football, and fell for Lindsay, the most beautiful girl he'd ever seen. His duty took him to Vietnam for a decade. Upon return, he found Lindsay married with 2 kids. Despite heartbreak, he tried joining the police, but faced rejection. He sought office jobs, but found none. In desperation, he started a hot dog stand. His business thrived until a fancy hot dog truck threatened his livelihood. Frank's business suffered a blow, forcing him to drift aimlessly. On a bus journey, he intervened when 2 thugs harassed an old man, using his military skills to subdue them. A passenger's video of the incident went viral, making Frank a citywide hero. His face appeared on graffiti and t-shirts, and he often assisted the police and appeared on TV, making his mother proud. After her death, he inherited the shared house and dog, Baxter. To avoid loneliness, Frank invites Klondike over. They find his mother's stash of pricey drinks and spend the night reminiscing about their Vietnam War days, including a humorous tale about a hefty Vietnamese woman. Klondike hands Frank a flash drive for safekeeping and urges him to move on from his past, but Frank is uncertain. Klondike steps out to get some cigarettes, and as he's about to head back, Sebastian and Torrance come up to him, asking for the flash drive. Sebastian tries to scare Klondike by pointing a gun at him, but Klondike, quick as a flash, grabs Sebastian's hand and beats up the 2 bullies until they're down on the ground. Feeling like he's won, Klondike salutes and smiles in celebration. But then Sebastian fires his gun, hitting Klondike in the belly. Klondike falls onto the ground in pain, while Sebastian and Terrace escape in a car. Frank's sleep was interrupted by a phone call from the hospital. He rushed there, only to find Klondike lifeless in the morgue. When Frank saw Klondike's things at the hospital, Detective Shaw recognized him as the hero from the bus incident. Frank made Detective Shaw promise to find Klondike's killer and bring them to justice. One day, Frank was at the supermarket trying to buy some drinks, but sadly, he didn't have enough money. Out of nowhere, 3 bullies stormed into the store with guns, demanding money from the cashier. Without a second thought, Frank stepped in, taking down the 3 guys with impressive punches. Grateful for his courage, the cashier rewarded him with a free drink. While Frank was drinking outside his house, Martin, a neighbor's boy, insulted him for his Mexican heritage and American habits. Recognizing Frank as the bus champion, Martin rudely asked for a demonstration of his fighting skills. Officer Millark later approached Frank to join the patrol, but he declined due to homework. Frank inquired about the Klondike murder case, and Millark explained the police's heavy workload and need for patience. However, when Frank saw the swift resolution of the Justin Wheely case on TV, he suspected racial discrimination in the police's handling of cases. Despite Detective Shaw's denial and assurance, Frank's frustration grew upon seeing detectives playing games instead of investigating. Frank decided to investigate Klondike's death himself. He found bullet casings and a woman's pendant at the crime scene. The pawn shop owner identified the casings as government issued and recognized the woman in the pendant. He directed Frank to her husband's house, number 7, with a yellow truck. Pretending to be a friend returning the necklace, Frank learned from the angry woman that her husband, Terrence, was last seen playing basketball nearby. Armed with this info, Frank hopped on a bus, checking a map to figure out where Terrence could be. He got into a basketball game and tried to ask some guys about Terrence, but they laughed at Frank and tried to hit him. But Frank was quick and took down the bullies with some well-placed punches. Scared of getting hit again, one of them finally told Frank to look for a guy named Ronaldo at his apartment, as he might know where Terrence is. Frank went straight to Ronaldo's apartment and got in by kicking the door open. A man dressed like a priest tried to stop him, but Frank quickly made him back down. The man confessed that he wasn't really a priest, just a singer for the Jewish community. So Frank didn't think twice about hitting him again to get some information about where Ronaldo was. At the same time, a man called William is having a chat with Panther, a crime leader who used to be his buddy. William is the town's mayor, and he's planning to run for re-election in about 3 months. He starts to get nervous about his political career when he realizes that his flash drive is gone. William fears that Frank might expose the information on the flash drive, revealing all the shady things he's done in his political life. However, Panther reassures William that they still control the streets, and he'll handle any issues with Frank to make sure nothing disrupts William's political ambitions. Frank was helping an old lady with her bags when some bald men started shooting at him. He lunged behind the car with the lady, keeping her safe and avoiding the bullets. In the evening, Frank and Martin were having a chat outside the house when they were disturbed by a loud argument inside the house. Martin's mom, Amber, was having a heated discussion with her new boyfriend. When Frank noticed Amber's bleeding nose, he kindly offered to help clean it up, an offer Amber couldn't turn down. This made Amber wonder if Frank was a doctor, but Frank explained that he had learned about medical care from his mom, who was a skilled nurse. He also mentioned that he was a medic during the Vietnam War, helping wounded soldiers. Frank invited Amber and Martin to join him for dinner, which made him seem quite charming to Amber. However, Amber politely declined the invitation because she wasn't hungry. Still, she thought about making a tasty meal for Frank one day as a way to thank him for his help. Frank visited a bar to find Ronaldo. Recognized by a patron from a bus incident, Frank swiftly floored him. The bartender, fearing trouble, revealed Ronaldo was upstairs. Frank burst into Ronaldo's room, startling him and two girls. He demanded Terrence's location, and when Ronaldo attacked, Frank skillfully flung him out the window. Under duress, Ronaldo revealed Terrence was at his girlfriend Tatiana's massage salon on 10th Street. Later, Malark warned Frank that the police were close to issuing a warrant for his arrest due to evidence linking him to recent events. Frank defended himself, saying that he was only trying to solve his friend's murder. Malark advised Frank to leave the investigation to the police. When Frank got home, he was surprised to find his house messed up, like someone had been searching for something. Suddenly, a big man jumped out from hiding and attacked him, insisting that Frank give him his flash disk. Frank didn't just stand there, he tried to defend himself, but the man was too strong and knocked Frank down. But Frank wouldn't quit. He quickly stood up and with a strong move, tossed the man out the window. Frank then went to Martin to look at what was on the flash drive using his computer. He discovered that the flash drive had details on how to rebuild whole neighborhoods. Later, Frank visits Tatiana's massage parlor, hoping to find out where Terrence is. But Tatiana tells Frank that they're no longer together, and she doesn't know where Terrence is. Feeling uneasy, Tatiana leaves, not knowing that Frank has followed her home. Frank tries to enter through the window, but Tatiana's neighbor spots him, so Frank pretends to be Tatiana's boyfriend who came to surprise her. Sluggy, recognizing Frank as the hero from the bus and being a fan, lets him in. He even tells Frank that Tatiana always leaves her back door unlocked. Once inside, Frank quickly opens the bedroom door and finds Terrence and Tatiana together in bed. Terrence tries shooting Frank, but ends up shooting Tatiana. Frank takes advantage of this and takes him down. He then uses the kitchen shredder to make Terrence tell him the truth about his boss. After getting a confession from Terrence, Frank headed home. But when he heard a noise from Amber's house, he quickly ran in to stop a man who was about to hit Amber. The man, who was accused of having a relationship with Amber, tried to attack Frank, but Frank skillfully caught his hand and twisted his arm, causing him some pain. Eventually, the man gave up and left, telling Frank he could have Amber if he wanted. Amber told Frank that Martin was staying at a friend's place and suggested he rest, promising to have lunch ready when he woke up. Not wanting to miss the chance, Frank quickly went back to his house to clean up after the earlier chaos. He then returned to Amber's house, looking tidy, wearing fresh clothes and carrying a bouquet of beautiful roses for her. Frank and Amber are having a great time at her garden, and just when they were about to kiss, her son shows up from his sleepover, ruining the mood. Later, Frank went up to Malark and handed him a flash disk for safekeeping in case anything happened to him. He shared that Klondike had died because of it, and pleaded with Malark to take care of Baxter if anything happened to him, as he was planning to get his revenge. After that, Frank entered a church and asked the priest to forgive his sins, knowing that he was about to do something significant that night, to seek justice for his friend's death. Frank then goes to Panther's garage looking for him, but Panther recognizes his voice and comes out to face Frank. Panther blames Klondike's death on theft and demands a flash drive from Frank. Frank feigns ignorance, attempts an attack, but is paralyzed and tied to a chair with a taser by Panther. Panther explains the disk's importance to the city and proposes a public service exchange for it. Despite being attached to a STEM device, Frank remains silent and skeptical, angering Panther. After finding Frank's wallet, Panther suspects Frank's defense of the disk is due to his girlfriend living in his impoverished neighborhood, prompting Panther to investigate. The moment Panther steps out, Frank swiftly unties himself and tosses the lighter at the drum full of fuel, causing a big explosion. Frank catches up to Panther and gives him a good thrashing in a tough battle, but Panther manages to hurt Frank's leg with a knife before he finally escapes. Frank, however, is able to leave just in time before the garage blows up. Panther gets away and successfully takes over a bus that's about to leave. At the same time, Frank goes up to another bus driver and asks to use his bus. The driver, recognizing Frank and being a fan, gladly allows Frank to use his bus. Then Frank drives the bus at high speed through the city streets, trying to catch up with Panther, causing a lot of disruption to other cars en route. Panther gets to an open space and decides to stop and wait for Frank, intending to wreck both vehicles, but Frank smartly swerves at the last moment, causing his car to flip over. Meanwhile, Panther keeps taunting Frank without looking at the road ahead, leading his car to crash into a train that's passing by. Frank was able to escape from the car after smashing the broken windshield from the crash. He sprinted towards Amber's home, but along the way, he encountered two goons, who appeared to have a strong resentment towards him. They blamed Frank for the removal from their crew, with one of them being left by his girlfriend, and they had misfortune after not succeeding in killing Frank. So now they plan to record Frank's demise while they assault him. However, Frank stayed cool and swiftly overpowered the two goons in a brief scuffle and proceeded on his way to Amber's home. In the meantime, Panther has reached Amber's home ahead of time and is loudly asking for the location of her flash drive. Panther, in his panic, attempts to harm Amber, but Frank shows up at the perfect moment, stepping in to shield her. A heated battle breaks out between Frank and Panther, spilling over the house's front yard. As Panther readies to stab Frank once more, Amber courageously jumps onto Panther's back, allowing Frank a chance to stand up. Frank then uses careful and precise boxing moves to land a strong punch on Panther, sending him tumbling to the ground. The TV news comes back to announce that Frank has managed to expose the largest corruption case in town, which involves Mayor William and a risky group. Frank is also presented with a special award for his bravery, and he's named the new police chief to take over from Malark. Malark, being a friend, hands over the leadership badge to Frank without any hard feelings. The movie ends with Frank, Amber, and Martin having dinner as they enjoy time together after the bad times they've seen, making Frank finally happy after all these years.